Sound check real quick. Indeed. Okay, let's do a sound check one more time. Can they hear me online?
Yes, and I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, it is 6:33 p.m. And I'm calling this meeting of the Twin Cities German Immersion School Board to order. Today is September 29th, 2022. Let's start with a roll call. Julia?
Director Albers,
Here.
Director Albertus,
Here.
Director Dayton.
Here.
Director Ebenholz,
Here.
Director Hoffman,
Here.
Director Height,
Here.
Director Huitzinger.
Here.
Director Das. Director Müller.
Here.
Director Reis. Here. And Director TCGIS.
Yes, we have two board members out of town tonight. All right, we'll start with our mission, vision, and values. The mission of the Twin Cities German Immersion School is the innovative education of the whole child through German immersion. Our vision is andere Hören, andere Sehen, Weltoffen Denken und Handeln. And our values are curiosity, kindness, challenge and support, intercultural engagement. What do I start with? Curiosity and community. These mess me up. All right, I saw in our run brief today that the PTO strudel and plant sale is open. So please support our PTO and place your orders. I saw they'll be arriving November 28th. Also, they are hosting the Halloween event on October 29th. It's a Saturday. They're looking for volunteers to host tables. And if you'd like to attend to trick or treat, they ask you to sign up so that they can plan to have enough candy for the kiddos. So check that out. I'm looking forward to those fun events. And of course, their fun run is this weekend. So if you haven't yet signed up, please sign up. If you're not a runner, you can volunteer. I know they're looking for course marshals to help guide people as they run. And I'm sure they would find other volunteer opportunities for you as well. Emily, you had a good time last year. What did you get to do?
I got to shoot the gun off to start the race.
Yes,
Fun time.
so you could be a lucky volunteer like Emily was last year. All right. Oh, and I just want to mention that Director Kirsten Christensen is not here at the moment. She'll be joining us as soon as possible. She's currently attending the Minnesota Association of Charter Schools annual meeting and needed to be there. That ends at 7:15. So as soon as she can drive over, she'll be able to join us. All right, brings us to the consent agenda. Are there any corrections to the minutes from last meeting?
I have an
Director
amendment.
Hartman? Yeah.
I have an amendment to the Finance Committee meeting for August. I was in attendance at that meeting and I'm not on the list.
I can fix that.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other corrections? All right. I'll ask for unanimous consent to approve the consent agenda. Any objections? Hearing none, that passes. And that brings us to open forum. I'm skipping over the board response to letters. We did not receive any letters in time for this board packet. We received one last night, so that will be addressed in the next board packet. We'll get a response out to that community member as soon as we can. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to address the board in open forum? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the open forum portion of the evening. All right, tonight we welcome Alyssa Moffett, parent volunteer extraordinaire. She is our parent council representative who put a ton of work into analyzing the results of the parent survey, parent satisfaction survey, which was conducted at the end of last school year. It was a long survey. We have a ton of data and we can learn a lot from it. So thank you for putting all that together, and I'll let you share your screen and go ahead with the presentation. We've got 30 minutes on the agenda.
Thank you, Director Apatow. Let me try and share here. Big Zoom go away. Okay. So the survey was done at the end of the last school year from May 31st until June 16th. There were 238 respondents, with the number of students represented at 349. There are 8 sections overall. So we're heading off with the first section, which is overall satisfaction. Excuse me. There was a slight reduction in strongly disagree from 2 down to 1.3%. There was a reduction in disagree, pretty more significant. And then there was we had a neutral not as an option the year before. So I compared it against the 2019-20 year, and there was a reduction there as well. There was also a reduction in agree and strongly agree. That's a lot of that is going to be because of the neutral addition. I think in future years we should probably nix the neutral. So next question was, from the beginning of the current school year till now, my overall satisfaction with the school has. Majority of respondents remain the same at 58.8%. 28.6 were increasing and 12.6 were decreasing. Some of the decreasing reasons were bullying, busing issues, feeling unheard, and academic rigor concerns. Some of the increasing reasons were good teachers and staff, good handling of COVID, student support, good leadership, and COVID testing. If you want to see more detail and examples, you can look in the extended version in the board packet. This next question is the new question this year. I would recommend TCGIS to a friend. 93.7% of respondents said they would, with 43.7% being strongly agreeing. 6.3% would not recommend, and then 0.8% would strongly disagree with that. Section 2 is new this year. It's collecting some demographics. The first one is to help us understand how the school is meeting the needs of families of all racial and ethnic identities. Select all that apply for the individuals in your household. You can see on the screen the distribution there. It's important to note that this was a check all that apply. So there are some households that have more than one identity represented within their household. One of the reasons for doing these demographic questions is so that we can dig a little deeper when we see issues or positive things arising and kind of figure out what the source might be. Next we have, does anyone in your household belong to the LGBTQ+ community? 83.7% said no, and 16.3% said yes. Would you categorize your family structure as, and Our options were family with multiple households, blended family, and single parent household, or none of the above. Those are the designations that were outlined in the Modern Family the group. And that's what we based it on. 19.5% of the respondents fell under one of the categories represented by the Modern Family group. Do any of the students in your household receive educational, emotional, social, behavioral, and or physical supports or therapies inside or outside of the home? It's a lot to bite off and chew, but that's sort of heading toward the special supports community. 53% of respondents receive services either in or out of the school. 42.1% of the respondents are receiving services within the school. Then we have, how many years has your family had a student attending TCGIS? The majority fell under the 5 to 9 year category, and was second being 2 to 4 years. How did your family originally hear about TCGIS? The majority with 45.3% was through friends and family. Next was internet searches at 26.7%. And then we have, they live in the neighborhood. And you can't see it represented in the screen, but the next one was under the other field, which is from Kinderstube and GAI. And then following that was the charter school fair. Here we have a breakdown of what the other responses were. So Kinderstube, don't remember, looking for German connection, wanting immersion, were some of the top reasons why people ended up at TCGIS. The next section is academics. First question was, I'm satisfied with the academic programs. Satisfaction increased in both the agree and strongly agree categories. Disagree decreased, and strongly disagree remain the same. This is a breakdown by grade level of the same data. You can see it's pretty evenly distributed over who is disagreeing, strongly disagreeing. And it's actually pretty consistent along the strongly agree and agree also. You can see here too that kindergarten and 5th grade have the highest rates of response. I am satisfied with my child's German skills. The strongly disagree increased to 4%. We had a pretty from 0. Disagree decreased, and agree increased. Strongly agree decreased. So we sort of had some significant shifting around there. The ratio between agree and strongly agree and strongly disagree stayed about the same. There was just some shifting within those ends. Here is the class breakdown of I'm satisfied with my child's German skills. The majority of the disagree and strongly disagree are in elementary school, with the largest collection being in 4th grade. TCGIS meets my child's academic needs. Agree and strongly agree both increased. Disagree reduced by 6%, and strongly disagree stayed the same. TCGIS meets my child's academic needs. This is the breakdown by class. The disagrees are pretty evenly distributed again across all grades. 5th and 8th grade have the highest number of disagree and strongly disagree. And we're not going to go over these slides, but they are in the board packet. The greatest areas of dissatisfaction were in math, reading, and social emotional learning. I am well informed about the classroom and school-wide expectations for my child and how my child is doing in school. Strongly disagree and disagree both increased by 5%. Strongly agree and agree both decreased, with strongly agree decreasing by 8%, which is a pretty significant move. Here's the class breakdown. The largest areas of dissatisfaction are in middle school, with the informed about the classroom and school-wide expectations. My student has experienced bullying at school. 10% of respondents experienced regular bullying, which I'm categorizing as monthly, weekly, or daily. And here I got a slide about further comments on academics. So this is from the comments. The most common references were to improving the academic communication, having more challenge or differentiation amongst the multiple subjects. Lots of comments about good teachers, homework, kind of equivalently balanced of more or less. There's people on both sides. Math was mentioned on its own pretty significantly. There were a lot of references to science issues, and then German concerns and challenges support. You can see the rest. There's a further listing of that in the packet as well. We have Kinder Club and after school activities. I'm satisfied with the extracurricular activities after school. There was a increase in strongly disagree and a decrease in disagree. Agree and strongly agree increased, and there was pretty significant change in participation due to COVID. I am satisfied with before and after care, Kinder Club. There's a slight decrease in strongly disagree, an increase in disagree, a big increase in agree, and a slight decrease in strongly agree. There's also a decrease in not participating. It's like some change there. Then we have parent communication and involvement. TCGIS welcomes family involvement. Disagree increased by 1.9%. Agree also increased. Strongly disagree and strongly agree both decreased. So things were sort of shifting into the middle categories and not on the outliers so much. TCGIS actively engages families. 81.9% said either agree or strongly agree. 18% said disagree or strongly disagree. I feel appreciated for the ways in which our family supports the school, volunteerism, donations, etc. Agree and strongly agree, we're 92.8%. Disagree and strongly disagree, we're totaled 7.2%. TCGIS keeps me well informed on school-wide matters, board activity, events, issues concerning testing initiatives, facilities needs, etc. Agree and strongly agree, totaled 96.3%. Disagree and strongly disagree, totaled 3.8%. I read the room brief. Majority read the room brief regularly, either every week, every word, or nearly every week, nearly every word. About 11% were inconsistent about whether they read it. We did not have any rarely if ever, so that's great. Do you read the board updates in the room brief? Yes, 85 or 83.5%. Keep doing them.
Okay.
Whoever's doing it, good job. Do you attend TCGIS board meetings or watch the video recordings? 38.6% attended at least one board meeting. Most were no. The biggest draw is for topics of interest and attending a couple times a year. Do you read the middle school news block? 76% of respondents in the middle school do. 24% don't read it or rarely do. And there was one comment that said, there's a middle school news block. So, I think the amount of communication from the school is 8.9% said it's too much, which is an increase slightly from last year. 42.8% said just right. And 44.1% said it's a lot, and that is a reduction from the last year. Our family would benefit from school communications sent in a language in addition to English. 98.7% said no. The ones who said yes were all for German. The best way to communicate school events and opportunities to our family is the top 3 was the room brief, and then direct email, and then class in brief. For volunteer activities arranged by the school, the most popular are classroom specific events, so field trips, classroom events, and Eltern contact. There's also more interest in the future for volunteering in those roles and historically having volunteered in those roles. If there's a lot of opportunities that people didn't know about, so there's some room there to maybe figure out what to do about advertising opportunities. For volunteer activities arranged by the PTO, the largest volunteer participation was in staff appreciation and early release lunches. Both of those are kind of directed towards teachers and staff. And then also the PTO auction. They did a good job of getting the word out. Most people had heard about the opportunities throughout the year. Then we have school environment. I feel welcome in the school community. Strongly disagree and disagree decreased, and agree and strongly agree increased. That's moving in the right direction. Our family feels we belong to this school. 9.2% fell under the disagree or strongly disagree. This might be a place to possibly drill down in and cross-reference with demographic information, but that hasn't been done yet. The teachers in the school have built strong relationships with my children. There is an increase in strongly disagree and a decrease in disagree. Strongly agree decreased and agree increased. School staff encourages students to respect each other's differences. Strongly disagree increased, disagree decreased, agree decreased, and strongly agree increased. I understand what PBIS is, which is positive behavioral interventions and support. Over 22% of respondents don't understand what PBIS is. So it seems like there's an opportunity for education there, since it's a pillar of how our school functions. The school provides appropriate support to help all students reach behavior expectations. 14.3% disagreed or strongly disagreed. There was a significant drop in strongly agree and an increase in agree. My child is safe at school. Strongly disagree had a slight reduction. Disagree increased 4.7%, big jump. Agree increased and strongly disagree decreased significantly. Say strongly agree decreased significantly. Then we have school leadership. I have confidence in our school's administration. Peers' confidence has increased, disagrees reduced, and agree increased. The majority know how to contact the administration. I have confidence in our school board. There was a reduction in strongly disagree and also disagree, increase in agree, and slight decrease or decrease in strongly agree. That's another one that's sort of moving towards the middle. So here's some school leadership highlights. There's a number of questions that are in the packet that are not represented on slides here. Over 90% of the respondents know how to contact the school administration with questions and concerns. That's really great. Over 1/3 of the respondents do not understand the role of the elementary school and middle school deans. So there's an opportunity for communication there to clarify some of those. 70.6% of respondents felt the administration was responsive. 10% felt they were not, and 19.3% had no basis for answer. 28.6% of respondents did not know how to contact the board. So there's another opportunity there for spreading the word. 55% of respondents answered Das Kind im Mittelpunkt was the concept at the center of the strategic plan. 60.5% of respondents were not familiar with the strategic plan. And I don't know what the last one is. We'll just skip right on ahead. So then we have our final category is miscellaneous. This was select all the appropriate descriptors of TCGIS as an organization. 99.6% knew it was a charter school. 53.8% knew it was a public school. 48.3% knew it was a nonprofit. And 36.1% knew it was an independent school district. I can explain to my friends and family the value of German immersion to my child's education. Strongly disagree increased, disagree decreased, agree increased, and strongly agree decreased. This is when I started making a bunch of X's in my cards. I'm proud that my child attends this school. There's increase in strongly disagree, decrease in disagree, increase in agree, and decrease in strongly agree. And this is some supplemental analysis. This will give you some idea of what other things might be possible based on what anyone wants to dig into the survey wants to do. So this is a comparison between overall satisfaction and the demographic breakdown. We have all respondents represented in the middle, the BIPOC community, and then white respondents. You can see that in the BIPOC group, the neutral is pretty lined up with the all respondents, but strongly disagree is a larger percentage than the overall population. Also, the agree is a little bit less, and the strongly agree is a little bit less, and the agree is a little bit more. You can see with the white respondent breakout, the neutral is a little bit low, also a little bit lower, a little bit more lower, and then lines up pretty closely with the disagree and strongly disagree as far as percentages go. Overall satisfaction breakdown with LGBTQ+ and non-LGBTQ+. The satisfaction is matched up exactly with strongly agree, and then it's more amongst the agree community, and neutral is lower also, and there's no responses of disagree or strongly disagree amongst that community. This is a comparison just between overall satisfaction and would you recommend TCGIS to a friend? But we could also add a comparison similar to the last one where you have the general community and then the breakouts. Same with the LGBTQ+ community. It's like they'd all recommend it, which is pretty cool. All respondents, that is. Then we have some bullying research that we can drill down on. This is broken down by grade level. The yellow, blue, and red are the regular bullying. And you can see that elementary school has the bulk of the bullying reports, with second and third grade being the most. Fourth grade too, with a different distribution between weekly and daily. Then if we can go down into bullying and broken out by racial and ethnic identities. The multiple racial and or ethnic identities are households that had more than one identity checked. And there's a significantly higher amount of bullying happening amongst that group than matches up with the percentages for the school as a whole, which you can see in this slide, where it's of the multiple racial and or ethnic identities in a household, 16.3% are bullied or reporting bullying versus the 9.5% for the entire school. There's also a category of rather not answer, and that population has a much, much higher bullying stat also. This is comparing it against LGBTQ, and all of the reported bullying fell in the no category for LGBTQ+. And that's it. And I made it. I have a timer.
Very
that I'm
good.
looking at. So if anybody has questions, I can.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alyssa. That was a ton of data, and thanks for doing the extra.
Yeah. Everybody's swimming in numbers now. But there is opportunity for other cross-reference. Any question in here can be cross-referenced with any other question. I'm happy to do it. I like numbers. Crazy that way. I see someone else who likes numbers in the corner. So, questions? Cool.
So Alyssa and Kirsten and I met a few days ago to go over these slides and the cross-reference data as well. And we talked about the plan going forward would be that Kirsten and her administrative team will meet and pull out what the priorities are for the administration to work on. And then at the next month's board meeting, they'll present the takeaways from this survey and what administration plans to do for action items. Yeah, clearly there's some areas to work on, so.
That's what that is good for. Direction.
How many percentage of parents? Maybe I missed that number or I didn't reply.
There were 238 respondents. We don't know, like, I don't know that we have a number of how many parents there are represented at the school. And is possibility that those could be from more of the same household. So I don't have a great answer for that.
Did you have a number for students though?
349.
Which would make it 80% something like that?
So 349 out of 590.
$590. $58.
Wait a minute.
I got a calculator.
One item we discussed was regarding communication and desire for other languages being translated. We noted that, of course, to take this survey, you'd have to be comfortable answering questions, reading questions in English. So despite perceived lack of interest in that or perceived need, I think we need to do some more research into that, just
Yeah.
to make sure.
It could be a self-selecting question.
Since the survey was not offered in different languages.
Yes.
And then I'm sure our treasurer is wondering where the tuition is going to those that think it's a private school. We'd love to get that tuition. But no, TCGIS is indeed a public school. It is a charter school. It's also a nonprofit organization and an independent school district. So I don't know if that was too tricky of a question, that you could select all options.
Well, the public version too, it might be a little confusing between what a district school is and what a charter school is, and that they're both public.
Yeah.
And that it's not a separate designation for them.
Right.
Yeah, I understand that confusion more than the private school answers.
Well, the question didn't say, is it a private school? So
Right.
there's some room
It's just
for.
not a public school, in their opinion. Or
Yeah.
perception.
Yeah, these questions more feel like a test than a survey. It's like, you
Except,
can check all the boxes, it seems like a test, where we got a multiple choice test. So in a survey, I don't know if that's an appropriate question in a survey.
Mhm.
except the PBIS one had the answer in the question.
Okay.
When I read that, the PBIS one says, do you know what this is? And then it,
Well, do you understand it? So
yeah,
Understanding how it's implemented within the school versus what words stand.
I found it amusing either way.
So, and yeah, there are definitely if questions seem inappropriate, it's something that we should hit with the next survey and remove stuff and.
Yeah, I think that was in there so that we could gauge kind of how well people understood the structure of the school, because often I don't think I would have gotten that right when I first joined the school, so. Yeah, did you have a
Yeah,
question?
just another remark similar to said before, will be, and now we have the survey results, and the next meeting, we're gonna talk about the, would have been good to have a summary of that survey and then the measurements right away, discuss it as one, one
Mhm.
big topic. I think.
Yeah. I think the timing just didn't work out because Alyssa, had some time constraints.
Okay,
We
okay.
didn't get the summary till the beginning of the week, so we didn't really give admin time to put a plan together. I think they
Well,
need
that's why
to,
maybe we should have discussed
Yeah.
them all together next.
sure,
Results as well as the areas of concern and
Yep.
potential measures to be taken.
One good piece of timing regarding this is that we have a administrative meeting with the BIPOC Affinity Group planned for
Okay.
October 6th. And so when we saw the slides, we're breaking out, the BIPOC responses versus the greater responses of the whole community versus white. I think that's going to be great information to share with them ahead of time and then have that as a source of discussion. Like, drill into that, see if there's any insights that they can share into what could be causing that That's one of the reasons we're having that meeting, is to drill down and try to identify any sources of discrimination that shouldn't be there. Yes,
Just for an alternative perspective, maybe I really appreciate actually not doing it all together, because we can kind of chew on it for a little while. And I think with a board, I think the only bad thing you can do is rush through something, and I really appreciate seeing the development of this. It feels more like we have an oversight, kind of, rather than like we're deciding it or we're just signing off on something. This feels good.
mhm. Good. Yeah, we can discuss it also at committee of the whole in 2 weeks. And hopefully administration will have a draft for us to review of action items and plans, so. All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you so much, Alyssa.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, that brings us to our board committee reports. Let's start with our finance and facilities. Committee chairs can opt to give a brief synopsis of their reports or just ask if there's questions regarding the reports that are in the packet. So it's up to the committee chair.
For the Finance and Facilities Committee, I think we've talked about everything several times over the last 3 or 4 meetings. So if anybody has any questions, or has thought of anything they want to input, I will take that. Otherwise, yeah, I don't think we need to go over it
Okay.
since there's such great note in the packet. Thanks to Julie.
You're welcome. And actually, I had an action item. Director Hartman, would you be able to help take notes during the finance and facilities meetings
I can help with that.
going forward?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Director Hyde requested assistance with that,
I
so
just can't run a meeting and take notes at the same time.
totally understandable. All right.
I'm not a superhero like Julie.
Governance and Leadership Development, Director Albers.
Yeah, so overarchingly, not much to report on, the policies that fall under one policy number, 509, 509.1, and 509.2, which all relate to, enrollment was flagged by MDE. That is almost done with, its review for them. I spoke to Dean St. Vinig, and we're well underway to hopefully getting that done by October. That's kind of the biggest update from governance in general. Otherwise, kind of plugging along with some new policies and reviewing the old ones. There is one policy that is up for approval tonight, so I'll ask for, I'll make a motion to approve policy 501, which is school weapons.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Hyde. Discussion on the weapons policy.
Overarchingly, just to give an update about where it's at. The biggest things that have changed are highlighted in yellow and a few things crossed out. We kind of broke out the definition of weapons, refined it a little bit just to make it very broad, to make sure that we are allowing for any and all things that might be considered a weapon to be designated under that definition. And I believe that was it, actually. So, into mine.
Mhm.
Yep, that's all there is for that one. Sorry, I don't want to scroll too fast.
Emily, I did notice one thing on this one after our meeting.
Mhm.
The second part of definitions, where it says weapon means. I forgot to ask why we were removing that they would be treated as weapons. Is that later on?
When I read it I thought it just kind of seemed redundant. If something has the appearance of a weapon, is still there.
So you're thinking that
And
one and
this is a
two-
definition of weapon,
Right,
so you don't have to say it's gonna be treated as a weapon.
Do we say that somewhere else though in the policy?
Yeah, in above it in two is the, basically the rule.
so. We're thinking that maybe 1 and 2 could be combined and or 3.
So 3A
So
is just
Two general statement of policy, is that the two you're referring
correct,
to?
yep. No student or non-student, including adults and visitors, shall possess, use, or distribute a weapon as defined in the policy when in a school location except as provided in this policy. And then 3A goes on to define what a weapon is. And number 2, there says any object, device, or instrument having the appearance of a weapon, including but not limited to, blah, blah, blah. So that was, like Julie said, a redundancy.
So we want to look to move or cross out 2
No,
or no?
maybe I misunderstood your question.
Well, if it says anywhere that we're gonna treat things that look like weapons as weapons, but I guess if
Yep,
we're
so it's
defining anything that
defining it.
looks like a weapon as a weapon, then
Yep.
we're probably good.
Yep.
But, okay, good. Yes,
Mhm.
I'm good then.
Another question?
All right,
Oh, I was gonna
Yeah.
comment, sorry, just if we could clean up the formatting errors before it
saw
actually
that.
gets posted.
Yes.
Yeah, so particularly in exceptions, section 4
Yeah, this part
exceptions.
got kind of wonky. for
Yeah, the 1,
some
2, 3,
reason.
4, and then the A
Yeah.
and the B go even farther in
Yes,
as a subset of
Yep.
number 4.
correct. And we can change formatting if we ever see it wrong in other policies too, I think, without approval. It's just a formatting issue. It's not actually changing anything about the policy, but just cleaning it up.
Mhm.
In theory, we could add the new logo to the top if we wanted to, and that would not need to be. I mean, we can obviously discuss it, but. Yeah,
I was,
that will get cleaned up. Thank you for reminding me. Yep.
Did you have something else to say, Director
no,
Hyde?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on the weapons policy? Hearing none, I'll ask for unanimous consent to approve the policy as written. Any objections? Policy approved. Thank you for your good work, Emily. All right, next up is fundraising committee. Director Wright.
Yeah, we had our first fundraising meeting in September, and in addition, just kind of an overview for the year, we dove right into planning for our fall campaign that's in conjunction with Give to the Max Day. Working on some strategies for engaging new families, encouraging a connection to remain with our alumni family, and also just strategizing on how to add some fun and some fun changes to our efforts this year. Give to the Max is our largest fundraising endeavor of the year. So this year we're looking to raise about 60,000 of our 110,000 for the year through our fall campaign. So I'll be following up with everyone probably later this month to talk about the board's role in that campaign. Historically, we've done a board match, so I'd like to invite everyone to consider participating in that again this year. So I'll have more details on that. The fall campaign is well underway.
That's exciting.
We're also going to be working with Emily's committee to talk about a fundraising policy this year. So that's kind of our biggest new initiative coming forward to kind of add a little bit of more formality around how we fundraise as a school.
Mhm. Fantastic. Any
Any
questions on fundraising?
When is again Give to the Max Day? I believe it's the 19th. It's usually that third week in November, and we kick it off here with St. Martin's Tag. piggybacking on that holiday of generosity.
Mhm. Any other questions?
Can you say a little bit more about policy and governance related to that?
Well, we're just starting, but really kind of looking at some overarching principles of who fundraises, what type of fundraising we engage in as a community, and just some kind of oversight as well as who can do what, who gets to sign up on what, and no, we just kind of got a policy to look at as a basis for that from the St. Paul Public Schools. So we're reviewing that and start that discussion at our October meeting.
Is the PTO going to be involved in that conversation about the policy?
Well, they're a separate 501c3, so they kind of are governed by their own set of bylaws and own rules. I'd like to certainly involve them in the conversation. I do think it's two separate entities though.
Yep.
Because this would really be a policy for the school as a whole.
Okay.
To answer your question, though, there is already like an agreement between the PTO and the school about kind of who categories of fundraising and as well. So there's an informal agreement that we have that we sign each year.
I also really like the booster club idea. So
The what?
kudos. I really like the booster club idea, exploring that. So kudos. Be excited to see where that goes.
All right, any other questions? Fantastic. Thank you so much. Next on the agenda, Diversity and Belonging Committee. Director Aberhard.
Yes, we also had our first committee meeting this school year in September. We also did some, we looked at our goals for this year, our milestones. And some interesting highlights were that we discussed translating the application and parts of the website into different languages. We were brainstorming what languages would be valuable to be a more inclusive school community. And we also have steps to identify parts of the website that are really targeted to new families that are looking at our school and to try to include them. We also will set up a new subcommittee to plan an international fest next year, probably spring, early summer. We haven't met yet with that committee, subcommittee, but if anybody is interested to join and would like to help with that, you're welcome to do so. It was in the Womply for the first time this week, so that's to come. We will also continue the slideshow showing diversity projects from classrooms. I sent an email out this week and I'm collecting projects again for everybody to see. And I also put the book club survey into the Womply this week. I had the idea, and I think some others as well, to host a book club around diversity where we would meet maybe once a month and discuss a book together. Let's see. Oh yeah, and there's the new section that won't think you might have noticed about interesting opportunities to intercultural engagement opportunities in the Twin Cities, and there were 3 events in there this week that I encourage you to check out if you have time.
And if anybody comes across ideas for that section, send it to Kevin and he can get it in there. Any questions for Director Aberhard? So the affinity groups are starting. You've seen BIPOC meetups already planned in the room brief, and Wandy is helping with that. and my co-coordinator from last year, Christine Schuttenbar. So we have at least one event planned for every month until up through January. So I'm gonna start with that and then figure out what to do in the spring. The LGBTQ plus group, that is looking for a facilitator or a coordinator. So if anyone out there would like to volunteer to be part of that group and to help organize the get-togethers, I think that would be greatly appreciated. There is a lot of interest in the group. It's been organized in the past by Dean White, and his bandwidth is limited to continue with that. So we're hoping we can get some help. And the same for Modern Families. So that will be a task force. It's organized by Elizabeth Senfenig, Dean of MS. And I'm sure she would love some help organizing for that group as well. So if there's anyone out there, please send them a note. All right. Thank you, Director Eberhard. Communication and Outreach Committee, Director Müller.
Yeah, so also first meeting in September 7. Have we introduced ourselves, all the members, and you in being the chair of that committee. And also the committee changed a little bit because it is now also taking care of outreach. So the name is now communication and outreach, which means that specifically the parts of advocacy and alumni relations, and if there are outreach initiatives, but at this point, these are the bigger ones, I think, are added to the communication. Yeah, we discussed the charter, which is board package, and also the subgroups and tasks that we are working on based on the strategic milestones, the milestones of the strategic plan. So some activities that happened or things that happened. There's a neighborhood newsletter, the Bugle that came out with. We had a piece in there highlighting our middle school and also talking about the arrival of the Adjourn Exchange students. I think it just came out last week. Then Alumni Newsletter was sent out. It's also can also be found on the LinkedIn. Really try to use our LinkedIn account more for alumni so that they can connect with each other, parents too. So people who won't check it out. Yeah, so the Alumni Newsletter had, especially I would like to highlight a feature of Tia Ru, an alumni, who is now the first TCGIS German high school teacher. So she became a German teacher herself in Billings, Montana. And there's a really nice feature about her. Like I said, you can see it if you want to read it. It's on LinkedIn. And then we also, there was a recruitment flyer created by the school administration and delivered in order to let people know that there are openings in some grades. Yeah. Report.
It's great. Yeah, the flyer was attached to the Eltern brief. No, that's so old. It was attached to the Eltern contact email. That's why I screwed it up. So Eltern Contact sent that out and asked parents to forward that link if they knew anybody that might be interested. We would love to increase our enrollment to what we had originally budgeted, which is just 2 more students. So I think we could get 2 students. So please share. Let them know you love TCGIS. All right. We've made it through all of the committee reports. I realized we didn't go over the committee charters. Did any committee have comments about their charter? Any major changes in their charter? Or are there questions about the charters that are in the board packet?
The Finance and Facilities Committee charter had one significant change outside of the members and everything. We moved the facilities section to a lower part in the charter and outlined that we would be working with the campus planning committee as the facilities subcommittee.
Okay. Are you planning to still hold a facilities half-hour meeting every other month? Or what's the plan?
There's 2 more on the calendar. I was gonna leave them there until the campus planning committee gets up and running after Lisa gets more comfortable in her role, and then we can kind of just decide from there, working with them on whether we need that time or not.
Okay.
Somewhat related to that, in the fundraising charter, we noted that we are pausing the capital campaign fundraising efforts until the facilities committee and campus planning committee kind of come up with a grander plan.
Okay. Makes sense. Mhm. Any other changes to charters?
I mean, as I mentioned, we added some, in the communication committee, we added some activities because outreach is also.
Yeah. Yeah, I do know.
Yeah, so I saw a reference to a strategic plan task force charter. Is that TBD?
Oh, I have it written. It was a to-do, one of
But we
my
didn't
action
review it
items.
for
No,
purposes of this evening, this
right.
meeting.
I can share it later. Or I could share it now. I was gonna do it under the committee of the whole.
That's totally fine. Just want
okay.
to make sure I didn't miss that it was there.
Yep. I'll mention the executive committee charter has changed significantly actually this year, with mission and school culture being decommissioned. We've rolled the subcommittees, most of them, under executive committee. So that includes the curriculum advisory committee, the special education advisory committee, the wellness committee. And so those are from mission and school culture originally. We also moved campus planning committee under executive. So that'll report up through executive. And then administrative liaison committee is still subcommittee of executive.
Was that in the packet? I missed it if it was the charter for the XCOM
Yeah, it's on page 55.
55.
Mhm.
Oh, it's after the director's report. That's why
Yeah.
I didn't find it. Thank you.
Kind of skipping ahead. See. Okay. The charter for committee of the whole, I think, stayed the same. Most part. So I see Director Christensen is here. I propose moving our recess up to now, and we can just let Director Christensen get settled in. And then we'll
Agreed.
do special recognition right after recess. Okay. Okay, so I call a recess until, we'll do 7:45 because that is when we said we would do the special recognition. So if anybody tunes in via Zoom, we'll be on schedule. All right. All right, it is 7:45 and I'm calling this meeting back to order. So next on the agenda is our volunteer and staff recognition. And we welcome Director Christensen to the meeting. We're glad you're here.
Thanks, I'm glad to be here.
So Director Christensen will provide the recognition tonight.
So I couldn't be more proud and grateful to recognize John Dahl, Katarina Schick, Elizabeth Saint-Fennig, and Esther Noy for the nearly superhuman work they did organizing this half of the Capstone Exchange. Our Germans just left this afternoon, our German friends. And it's a pretty good sized group, as you can see. And it took an enormous amount of effort. John Dahl stepped in and helped us plan activities. Katarina Schick was the logistics queen. Elizabeth Saint-Fennig was responsible for all of the time when they were in the school, which was a lot. And Esther Noy, among other things, did matching of the kids in their host families. And all of them worked together as a team seamlessly. And the teachers were so grateful. The kids had a good time. There were tears today as the bus pulled up and the kids had to leave. So it's, you know, the first time in 3 years that we've been able to have them here. And it was just so meaningful to have them in our school and throughout the Twin Cities, getting to see cultural sites. And we had a really wonderful gathering last night with their host families. And it was just really wonderful. And this team is amazing. I'm just really grateful for them. They did an amazing job. They are all now in the Bahamas relaxing.
Oh, good one.
And this program would not have been possible without the many 8th grade families who hosted our students and supported them throughout their time here. So that I think is in the state capitol, right? And host families provided additional cultural opportunities for the students and just a wonderful home environment for them while they were here. So thanks to our host families. And to the students. It's a big deal to have kids in your school and in your home. And I think they were nervous and our kids were nervous, but by the end it was really wonderful. And what this of course means is that when they go to Germany in May, they will have already made their good friendships and it should be quite seamless. So thanks to the kids too.
Oh my
Did
goodness.
you recognize more German speaking because of the students being here?
For sure. So what was really interesting is that when the kids were together, when Germans and Americans were together, even though we acknowledge that one of the reasons they come here is to be able to speak English, and we encourage that and support that, because when we go there, our expectation is that our kids will be able to speak German. When the kids were together, when there was a mixed group of Germans and Americans, probably around 80% of the time is what the report was. The language that they used was German. So our kids were more comfortable speaking in German than they were in English. So they got plenty of experience. And today was a really neat day. I highlighted in the Women Belief a little bit, but the German students, for the most part, were mostly with the 8th grade students and in their classes. But today they spread out throughout the school. They did story time with the kids. They did games with the kids in grades 2 through 7. So did some panel discussions. And so just gave the other classes a chance to say, ooh, when I'm in 8th grade, I'll get to do this. So that was really important too. And they did all of that in German.
And also thank you for the teachers who often
Yes,
have to be patient, probably to have so many.
absolutely, because it's a change to their schedule, and absolutely, yeah, I appreciate that.
How awesome that this is happening again.
How awesome. Yeah.
The last time we hosted in the fall was 2019 and my son got to host and it was fantastic. And we had a wonderful time with our student. And I'm hoping he gets to meet her again in Germany. someday, since
That
that
would be
trip was
neat.
canceled, but so
Well, I
great to
ha-
be back on track.
Had kind of a lump in my throat when they all walked in the building for the first day. Because that they were actually here, because we had anticipated them for basically 3 years, you know,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, it was just a sweet group, good group of kids.
That's awesome.
And yes, thank you to the teachers too. Wouldn't have happened without their cooperation.
All right. Next on the agenda is our director's report. And I'll note that we will have to cancel 8C, the academic achievement update, because Esther Noy, Dean Noy is not feeling well, so she can't be here tonight. So we'll postpone that until next month.
Should I still speak the consensus? Maybe not.
Up to you.
Okay. There we go. Okay, I'll start with our key performance indicators. For enrollment, we are, as of this week, at 617. We lost a student who had been absent for 14 days. We have to automatically disenroll them on the 15th day. He is coming back, however, and so I think he's coming back in January, so he will be back then. And we're working to fill that 7th grade slot that is still open. These are the same financial indicators that, or these are as of August, actually. 88 days cash on hand. Unbalanced to annual expenditures is 28.4%. There's a little note down there at the bottom. And our debt service coverage ratio is at 0.89. So these are the key performance indicators that are requested quarterly. One of them is HR. We discovered a few staff background checks that needed to be updated. They're supposed to be done every 3 years. So those are all in progress now. Diversity and belonging, just a little report on school initiatives. The BIPOC and LGBTQ affinity groups are active, and I didn't put it on here, but we're still working to get the Modern Families, now renamed Task Force, up and running. We have a land acknowledgement that has been drafted, both a full form and then a shorter form that could be used for reading at the beginning of meetings. And we are in the process, the Diversity and Belonging Committee is working on that, the process of seeking Indigenous input for finalizing that. Family engagement indicators. These are some things also that came up in the Diversity and Belonging Committee. Accessible communication by language reflective of the school and accessible feedback. We are currently working on getting the school application translated and recruiting materials translated into major languages that are reflective of the school community. That would include German, Somali, and a few other languages that I don't know if we identified with you.
We had some.
There's 3 or 4 languages.
Spanish, Nepalese, Korean.
And we're looking at contracting with translation service or interpretation services really for parent-teacher conferences. So these are things that are done as a matter of course in larger public school districts, but we haven't done them before, but want to do that to make our community more, everything we do more accessible. Support opportunities, I mentioned the affinity groups again. These are working well to create community and support and connections with administration. And the Modern Families Task Force is still in its formation phase. So are we gonna hear tonight? Or did that already happen? What? Parent survey?
We heard that.
Okay, you heard that. So the recommendations are, that's in progress. You'll hear admin response to that survey. Probably next month.
Yeah, that's what I shared after. she did
Okay.
that.
And one of the key indicators that was supposed to be shared was the survey response rates compared to the average of the last 5 years. We only have them for this year and the previous 3. So there you have them. They're all relatively similar, but have gone up in the last 2 years. This year went down a little bit from last year, but on a good trajectory generally. Couple of school highlights. You heard me talk already about our exchange students. I wanted to mention that our screener cycle has begun. We've already screened all of our kindergartners. This is a huge deal, and that's what we won this award for, is for our in-house German screeners. And this is part of the work of the school that happens kind of in the background and very smoothly. But it really makes a difference in being able to assess whether our students are struggling with reading more generally or with German in particular. And so it's a really important part of the work we do. And it happens 3 times a year. So it's a big deal to get it all happening. So our first season, our first cycle is happening.
Okay, you
And-
can't just briefly mention this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what award are you referencing?
That's right, because we were off screen when I mentioned that.
So Director Christensen was at the Max Award Ceremony
Annual meeting.
annual meeting to see if we would win the Innovation Award.
We were one of 2 who won.
Awesome.
So it was a wonderful team that helped me put the application together. I first asked in an admin meeting I read what the categories were and then asked for suggestions. And it was Esther who suggested that our screeners were really very innovative. And then I worked with Jessie Kember, who is our assessment and data person. And she actually runs the screeners mostly. And then Kirsten Newell, who was a psych intern here and is now at the University of Minnesota, having finished her PhD in the meantime, and Dr. Carol Mecklenburg, who is our school psychologist. All of them worked really closely with me on finishing the application. So my thanks to them for making it possible, because I didn't have all of the information myself. I did most of the writing, but was really grateful for their input. So.
Can you share what we won?
Oh, yeah. We won this cool banner. And we won $1,000 cash award. And they will come and do a video of the screener process. It'll be sort of a promotional video for the school that will be on the Max website. And we can, of course, put it anywhere we want as well. So it's just another way to get the name of the school out there and a little bit about kind of the cool work we're doing. So.
Is that something we can put on the website? 2022 Innovation Award winner.
Absolutely. Big.
Yeah, that's super
Banner
cool.
big.
Splash screen.
And in the neighborhood newspaper.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's replace the COVID-19 CRT
IRT,
or
sure.
IRT
I'm all for
part
it.
with it.
And our math club is up and running again. Herr Graf is not here. I was, anyway, he and Roxanne Cornell are doing such an amazing job. They have great enthusiasm, lots of participation, and they are preparing for competition this year. So it's really exciting.
Do you have any idea how many students are in it?
I don't.
35, I think they had to cap it. I think they had to say no to some that were interested.
I knew they had more interest than they could absorb. How cool is that?
Very classic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And do you know the age groups? Is it only middle school? It's only middle school, right?
It's only middle school. Yeah.
So just a few of the cool things that are happening. And so this is a completely different thing, but I want to notify the board, this is a requirement, of a variance application we filed and that was approved for Director of Special Education, Dr. Royan Hendricks. So a variance is something you apply for when someone is qualified in another state. But it's a way to get licensed in Minnesota. So that has been approved already, but part of the variance application requires notifying the board that the variance was applied for. And then we have to submit the minutes of the meeting to the Board of School Administrators saying that you were notified that I filed the variance. It's a formality.
Perfect. Noted.
And we will do this next month.
Mhm. All right, we also have the, well, first, any questions on the director's report? Okay, we also have the annual report. That's due to our authorizer, University of St. Thomas, by October 3rd. And the board needs to approve that before it's submitted. So that is in the board packet. Anybody have questions about that?
Do we have to approve it as is?
So I think we can suggest edits
I made a bunch of comments.
in the document. Okay. Let me find that.
Well, they're like tedious comments. I don't think we need to review every one of them, but
Oh, okay.
just in the finance section.
Okay.
Oh, okay, thank you. Can review those soon.
Yeah, I had a question about the finance section that I emailed earlier, and I think that's already been resolved. Okay, so. Any questions about the annual report? There's a lot of data in it, including the Innovation Award application. So if people are curious, it's linked in the annual report. So I'll make a motion to approve the annual report with including the minor edits that Director Hyde suggested. Perfect. Thank you, Director Dayton, for the second. More discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll ask for unanimous consent to approve the annual report. Any objections?
Sorry, Director, I have a question.
Yes.
Looking at Richard's comments, and there are some questions in there. Those
Yeah.
will resolve later, or
What questions did you have, Director Hyde?
Some of it's like, it says 2021 school finances.
Oh, that probably just needs to be, that was just an oversight.
Do you have
And then
editing?
the current budget, we have the preliminary June financial report there. I'm guessing it should be the or the budget we first approved for the year, for this year. I think those were the only two questions. Everything else was one paragraph rewrite and then just a bunch of word, like repetitive word removals. And Abdo changed their name, so we don't need the Eckenmeyers there anymore. And then I did have a question on the school is expecting an unqualified opinion. Is that, what does that mean? Unqualified, am I reading that wrong?
Yeah, there are no, it's not qualified, meaning there are no
Ah, okay,
issues.
I get it.
Qualified opinion is a clean opinion.
Yep, okay. I learned something
It's what,
today.
it's what we want.
That's good. I learned something. Thank you all.
So I'll just share the correction or question I sent earlier today was in section C1, financial health, under overview. The third bullet point saying the fund balance in the general fund ended with a decrease of 173,967, which was 8,645,487, better than the revised budget, with a beginning fund balance of 2 million, etc. I think that, let's see. Didn't
That's the
sound-
section I completely rewrote.
Okay, so that didn't sound right. So you rewrote it?
Mhm. You want me to read it to you?
Yeah, maybe I can get to it. I'm scrolling. Did you have edit access?
I asked for comment access when I got here, so I could add these quick before we started the meeting.
Okay, what did you write? Began the year with a general fund. Decrease, okay.
I left out that 86K part. I compared these numbers to the latest June financial, or yeah, June financials that I had, and I think that 86 was maybe a misinterpretation of a different section that doesn't need to be in the annual report overview.
Just reminded I had a note about something else. Okay, so regarding the Q comp goals, 2021-22 Q comp goal. It focused on math measured by FastBridge, A math, and it said the goal was not met. And then there wasn't any explanation about it. What was the goal and how far away were we from meeting it? If we could add that. For summer school, which grades were included in that? If we could add that to the report. I'm curious, was it elementary and middle school, or was it just middle school? If you have the answer, Director Alders, please share.
It was incoming first all the way up to incoming eighth.
Okay,
So it was already previously enrolled students that had completed a year of school at least
okay,
and did not attribute to anyone who had graduated in June.
mhm. And then the section about kinder club, no, about camp, summer camp. I am just curious. I think it said how many students were served this year, and I'm curious how many we served last year and if what the percent increase was or decrease. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I had all these notes and I forgot. Section B5, talking about community partnerships. It said GAI founded us, but it did not found us. GAI was our first officer. Yeah, I just want to make that clarification. That's all I had. Any other comments or questions? So I'll amend my motion to say approve the annual report with the edits that were just discussed. Discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Appendix 11 is the admission policy. Enrollment policy, sorry. Isn't that one of the ones we're working on with the change?
Correct.
So that ideally would be the revised and updated and approved one.
Yeah, it won't be done by Monday now.
What was left on that to change? I mean, we had discussed it twice, I think.
So there was, they were going through again, I think for the final time. This was between Elizabeth and Nicole, if my understanding is correct, and then they were just going to go through, as I had suggested to, with the checklist of saying, marking it off, like,
Oh, that we covered
that we
everything.
actually covered it. So I think it was going to be ready for October's board meeting, based on what I was told. But that's obviously the third.
Director Hartman, do you think we've covered everything on that list? Or Dr. Albers?
Well, the other, I don't think the other ones are attached. The other ones were the out of state and the
Early admission.
early admission. And that was where a lot of the main changes were. I was trying to remember what changes we made to the enrollment policy that's attached, the sort of main level one. I can pull that up. You can't find it.
So that's linked in the governance committee report. So just to bring everyone up to speed, when we submitted our new contract to MDE for approval, so our authorizer contract, MDE came back and said there's some minor discrepancies in our enrollment policy and our out-of-state enrollment policy. And so they asked us to kind of address those. So we're just addressing them. And Director Hartman is suggesting it would be great to have the updated version in this report. But I suppose we can just go. I don't know. Are you okay going with this one, Director Hartman? Or do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, I was just trying to look back and see what, if anything, we had.
What I'm seeing is mostly having to do with the early admissions and the non-resident enrollment.
Yeah, that's.
So
my
I think, looking at 509, I think the biggest part was that first piece where it was, we kind of tweaked the first sentence of what enrollment eligibility is. So cleaned up that sentence to, which was, I think, identified as well, to say TCGIS, enrollment at TCGIS is open to any child who resides in a Minnesota school district and to non-Minnesota residents in accordance with 5092, which kind of covered the idea of, yes, we offer enrollment to non-residents of Minnesota. However, it's underneath 5092 specifically. So we weren't getting too into the weeds in the main policy, which is more so about our standard enrollment of Minnesota residents that are not asking for early admission. Which is the bulk of our student population. And that I think was the extent that was changed, except for one bit in section 4 of 509 that says the early admission policy standards will apply, and that's underneath the age requirement section. So I think 509 is fine. I think it's more 509 1 and 2 that are
Yep. I think that's right.
So are you thinking
Thank you.
you would like to approve 509 tonight
we
to
can.
include it in the annual report? Or what do you think?
I think so. I think those were the,
We addressed everything MDE wanted.
I'm checking one last time if you want to continue.
So we can complete the motion we're on. And if we approve this 509, then that can be linked to the annual report. That makes sense? Okay. Any further discussion on the annual report? All right, all those in favor of approving the annual report with the edits that we've discussed and the new soon to be new 509 policy. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. While you double check that, Director Albers, we'll go to liaison updates. So we'll start with Director Dayton, our administrative liaison.
Yeah. Not much to update. We had a slow start due to illnesses, but we have our first meeting on Monday.
Excellent. Good. I think at that meeting, we need to discuss director's goals for the year. So if we have a draft, we can review and discuss. Perfect. All right. Staff liaison, Director Hyde.
I recently saw that there was a call for the elections for the staff council. So we have not met or discussed meeting yet, but I anticipate once that is finalized, it will happen shortly after that.
Director Christensen, could you include Director Hyde on invites to staff meetings?
Go to our all staff meetings.
All staff meetings. Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you can make it, that'd be great.
That would be great.
And
How often are those?
Every other month.
Every other month?
November 2nd is the first one.
And our parent liaison is not here tonight, but the parent council is completing their elections. I think it's elections run through tomorrow, so. And then their first meeting, I think, is October second Monday of October. And that will be the old parent council and the new parent council coming together for that transition. And so that's October 10th. All right. Executive committee, I already went over the charter and that's all I wanted to do with that update. Executive committee has not met yet, but we have a schedule now in place. I think it's, it's Thursdays, the third Thursday of the month from 4 to 5 via Zoom. So that'll be good. And committee of the whole. Let's see, what did I want to highlight? Yes, the strat plan task force. So I drafted a strat plan task force charter. And I'll share that on the screen once I find it. The goal is to do an update on our strategic plan. Given everything that has been happening the last 2 years. Okay. Let's see, I'll share it with you guys. Board, and then I'll share it on my screen. All right. Okay, so the objective of the strategic plan review to take place this fall of 2022 is to review and update the Vision 2025 strategic plan to create Revision 2025 or Vision 2025 2.0 or other identifier TBD. I'm open to all creative nomenclatures. These are the two I came up with. Just let that percolate. So the rationale to revisit the strategic plan. The plan itself calls for milestones to be reevaluated by the board annually and modifications made as necessary to stay on track with achieving Vision 2025. That's on page 27 of the strategic plan. TCGIS has new leadership with Executive Director Christensen, and the board would like to consider her unique insights and perspective along with those of her team. The challenges section was written before the effects of the pandemic on student well-being and academic achievement were known. Milestones should incorporate actions needed to address learning setbacks caused by the pandemic. So what is in scope, what's out of scope? In scope is to update the challenges section with pandemic repercussions and any other challenges not previously described. Update descriptions of the 2025 vision for each strategic area. Update milestones for school year 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25. And make any necessary updates to our key partners and collaborators. What is out of scope is changing the 4 strategic areas of focus and changing the main goal for each strategic area. So the plan on who and what would do, who would do what. Director Christensen and I met to discuss this, and this is our proposal. To have an administrative task force comprised of Kirsten Christensen, Elizabeth Senfenig, Dr. Rowe, and Lisa, what's her name? Hetkes, our new Director of Operations.
Actually, she pronounces it Henchies.
Henchies? Okay, good to know. So the admin task force would work to propose revised milestones, and the proposal would go to the board. And they could also update the key partners and collaborators. And then the board task force would be myself, Richard Hyde, Lori Hartman, and Jennifer Kwan Dobbs. I thought we could do a SWOT analysis to kind of do another big picture look at our school, just to make sure we've captured current strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then work any insights we glean from that into the narrative and suggest changes to the challenges section and the descriptions of the vision for each strategic area. So with those proposals from the 2 task forces, admin and board, Director Christensen and I would meet to incorporate changes into the updated document. I'm envisioning we could meet weekly to make those changes. We would continue consulting and collaborating with our administrative leadership team and the full board of directors as we do that. And the timeline, I'm hoping we could get this in front of the board for approval at the November 30th board meeting. That's keeping in mind that we don't have a December board meeting. I think we don't want to push this into the next calendar year because we are trying to really hone in what the milestones are and should be for this school year. So I think the sooner we do that, the better. And I'm open to comments and feedback on this charter.
I won't be here for the November board meeting. If it matters at all.
Okay. Director Hartman won't be here either.
I will
Oh, you will?
show up. That's my dedication.
November 30th is Director Hartman's birthday. So. You shouldn't be here.
No.
But that should be okay,
Yeah, we can go over it.
because your
At
input
committee
will
of the
be in
whole.
the document.
Seems like a lot of work to look.
See what we can do. I think we can. I mean, it would seem weird to approve new milestones in January.
Unless we want to move the meeting to the week before Thanksgiving.
What's that?
So unless we want to move the meeting to the week before Thanksgiving.
That would be in this time.
That would be less time.
But then I could be.
But he could be here.
I don't want to miss one. I'm on my 100%.
Someone counts, yeah. It's reported to authorizer. What are your thoughts on timeline, Director Christensen?
I think November is ambitious but doable. Given the whole purpose of it to.
Would you be open to splitting it?
I was
At all?
just thinking the same thing.
What do you mean?
They're
Like if
parsing
you,
it.
if you want to have the milestones for this year. Like if that's your concern for having this done in November, could
Oh,
we
just
say having,
focus on
let's
those
have
milestones?
the milestones for this year done by the November 30th meeting and the whole thing done by the January board meeting or something like that?
I like that. Mhm. That's a good idea.
That feels. Like a relief, that feels good.
Yeah. Updated, okay. Okay. Update the rest. Thanks, that's a good suggestion.
And didn't we, instead of, wasn't our discussion, instead of having a task force, that I was just gonna do it with admin?
We did, it's up to you. If you want to do,
It makes no sense for us to just do it in our admin meetings. But we'll figure that out.
want me to delete this? Leave it with admin.
Yeah, just say like admin task force.
Well, does the board in general feel strongly that everyone wants to be involved in this? Or are we good with the 4 board members working on it?
I think having the
I'm
4,
open.
I think having the 4 board members overseeing it is great. I think every committee should take the time to review the milestones that would be, you know, every year I put certain milestones in their charter for the year. So whatever milestones we can deem are more specific to committees could be reviewed in committee meetings. And that would be another reason to wait until the beginning of the new year to allow time for that.
Okay,
That being said, if any other board members wanted to help the task force, I think that's welcome.
well, and we'll discuss it at committee of the whole as well. So everyone will be in. All right, any other ideas? Do you guys have a name? Anyone super creative?
Electric Boogaloo.
Or do you love Revision 2025?
We love revision.
I like it. Cool. So I'm excited to get that started. I think that's all. Anything else from the committee of the whole discussion? All right, if not, that brings us to new business.
509 be classified in the new business?
Sorry, what was that?
Would 509 be classified in the new business then?
Yes.
All right. There we go. I just sent to board members the MDE link, as well as the policy to look at if you'd like to view it, in that range. The only other thing I saw to clarify on 509 in the enrollment policy itself is on page 4 of the PDF out of 10 pages that NEE sent, stating at under the section that says clarification and action required. It says the enrollment policy included in the contract does not clarify whether prospective students who are children of staff enrolling in grades 1 through 8 would be given enrollment preference in the lottery. Please clarify.
That's in 509.
I believe so, but it says enrollment policy. So to me, that means the general enrollment policy. And specifically, it's talking about staff, children of staff enrolling in grades 1 through 8, and they would be given enrollment preference in the lottery. I'm reading this right.
Which
Have a
section?
lottery for,
So 6 is where it starts talking about preference load.
Let me share my screen. Oops.
So
thank you.
Sure.
is that currently the policy?
I got it now. Emily, I'm good.
Siblings.
I'm sharing.
Teachers.
Okay, so under 6, kindergarten enrollment.
Well, this is where it says children of staff enrolling in grades 1 through 8. Not kindergarten.
Oh,
So
so we don't.
we don't have a lottery for that, but they want clarification on it.
Interesting, okay. Because this section is only kindergarten, is that the only place we talk about enrollment preferences?
So,
So,
or if it would go under 5 of enrollment process for new students.
I'm just wondering if 6 needs to be labeled as kindergarten enrollment, or if it could be lottery procedure. Or something.
The issue trying to address, like if there are more children applying for spots in grade 1 through 8 than we have available, how do we prioritize them? Yeah.
Mhm.
It's just a list.
And they're specifically asking if, I guess. If that wait list would then be prioritized for staff, children trying to attend our school.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
In previous years, when that's happened, we've come to the board and asked for a change to the number that we can go. Right, to accommodate us.
Now, the executive director has privileged to make decisions, you know.
To
Regarding
exceed
that.
the number of allocated seats.
Mhm. Within
We voted
reason.
on that.
Hmm?
We voted on that. It's been a while. It was back in.
I don't remember that. So,
So we're looking at section 5. We need to look at section.
maybe we had voted to temporarily increase kindergarten 1 and 2 to 25.
With that specifically, at some point it had been moved.
I
I
can't
don't
remember
remember when
that.
that was. Lori, to answer your question about, are we looking at section 5? I would argue, yes, I think we could put a section below specifically stating something about children of staff who are enrolling in grades 1 through 8. But it's not, the thing with MDEs is they're asking about preference in the lottery, and 1 through 8 is not a lottery.
Good.
So
1 through 8. So that's why I'm saying, do we need to reevaluate section 5 if you read the middle paragraph there? Suggest there is.
And instead of any given class, it should say kindergarten or something.
And then the next paragraph also does. So do we do those grades with just a wait list that's first on? First off, do we just keep a time-based wait list for people who have interest in the?
So siblings are
grade,
given
grade.
preference. And
staff.
Staff. Do you know which one comes before the other? I'm looking,
Which one?
I feel like staff comes before that.
Siblings, I think, is first, isn't it?
Do we have a lottery procedure somewhere else?
I just thought the same process, outlined in 6 with the garden. I think that's what I would say. The section that's highlighted, the second paragraph of section 5. Saying if there are more enrollments than openings in any given class, they will hold a public lottery. Sounds to me like that's the conflict that MGE has highlighted, is that we don't have a process for that public lottery. Right.
Because our process is under the kindergarten
Mhm.
enrollment specifically.
Right, so in that paragraph, if you just reference that
Mhm.
down to section 6, I think that pacifies the concern.
And say, these are the following preference categories for a lottery held through grades 1 through 8.
How does that work though, if we already are holding a wait list for other grades?
Would you just swap out lottery for wait list, time-based wait list?
Oh, if you get put on the wait list and then it goes to the next year. It, like, we restart the wait list, like, to figure out what the order is. Yeah, but this just says if there are more enrollments than openings in any given class. We'll hold a public lottery. So when our kindergartners go to first grade, if there's 10 kids on the wait list, that's over enrolled. Or there's more enrollments than openings.
They're
So then,
essentially synonymous, waitlist and lottery are essentially synonymous.
No, not really.
So the
yeah,
wait
because
list can be rearranged, like if a sibling comes on, they can be moved to the front,
They can.
right?
I think what Emily typed satisfies it.
Really like Nicole's eyes on this. That's my thought on it too, is that we double check this with Nicole Crushell, our enrollment coordinator. I'm not really comfortable finalizing this without making sure that what we're saying is what we do.
You're under a time constraint.
Well, we can just use the previous policy.
Or we could move to pass this with approval of. Or some sort of admin. Check off. If. Chair.
Because if it's not right, then we can revisit it next month.
So
Change
We
it.
could open it back up. If we decide to.
this also talks about enrollment forms for the following year. It seems like the whole of section 5 also applies to kindergarten. Because we don't,
Applies to-
just kindergarten. Because we don't have enrollment deadlines for higher grades.
So all of that is funky.
So I mean, I agree with
guess
you,
this
Megan,
is-
that addition probably satisfies them, but I think it opens another question on when we would have a public lottery if we have a wait list in other grades. Well, like none of that follows the same process. So maybe that enrollment process for new students should just be made for kindergarten and we put something about enrollment process for new students, like in other grades follows the wait list. If there is a wait list, it's first in, first out, or something like Lori said.
Wait list follows the kindergarten protocols, with the exception of it being a lottery.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that's what we're
then,
saying.
yeah, we still
Follow
can
the
consider
same preferences,
siblings
but-
and staff children, but
But it's a wait list.
But then after that, yeah, and first in, like,
Lottery.
and make it, your application is in first, you're on the wait list
We can make
next.
that.
That's how lottery works too, like they're taken out first, and then the lottery is done with the ones that don't qualify for any preferences.
Yeah, the kindergarten wait list is made with the lottery, like we don't stop drawing names when we get full, because like Berlin was number 2 on the wait list, her kindergarten year, so we, got in 3 weeks after the lottery happened because they approached the one before us and then approached us and we took the spot. So, and then that wait list will stay to my knowledge, that wait list will stay in that order as long as it exists.
It does.
Yeah, so it can just put something in the policy that explains that and keeps it going. If we get more applications in a grade with a wait list, they just go on.
Then
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Colleen and I'm a new parent here. I've waitlisted at a lot of different schools. And so everybody has their waitlist expire at the end of the school year. And then it restarts for the following school year. Does that make sense? So you only apply for one school year and then have to reapply for the next year. So your waitlist doesn't carry over from year to year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
And so that's the way every other school I've looked at has done it. So I assume that there's some rule about having to reapply or get a new list the next year.
So I think this has to go to Nicole.
Yeah.
Let her work it out.
So do you want to take it to bring it back, or do you pass it and have the full amend section 5 and 6 to reflect on her text?
Dr. Dayton, I think you could make a motion that we approve with the edits as shown. And include any updates from Nicole Crushell regarding how we handle the wait list for grades 1 through 8.
So
So seconded.
All right, thank you for the motion, Director Dayton, and for the second, Director Hyde. Further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the motion as stated, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so we can append that to the annual report. And that's due October 3rd, so you have time to work that out.
Which is Monday.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
So you don't have time to work that. Tomorrow.
Probably do. I'm.
All right, any other new business? Director Dayton.
Did we, maybe I missed it, but I was out, but did we do an update on the immersion task force? Are there any updates on the?
There are
immersion
no
task force?
updates. We haven't met yet.
All right. Next month. Director Hartman?
Yeah, were we intending to approve the charters tonight or do that later?
Yes. Did we not do that?
I don't think we approved all the charters.
All right. Would you like to make a motion, Director Hartman?
I will make a motion, we vote to approve the charters that are included in the board packet.
So Director Hartman made a motion to approve the committee charters as shown in the board packet. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Kurtzinga. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of approving the charters of all of our committees, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Further new business? Or anything else I forgot? All right, hearing none, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Albers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting is adjourned at 8:48 p.m. Thank you all for attending.